already know our new director, Rachel Mockey-Wagner, who is going to say a few words. We are all speaking on behalf of the department. Very excited that Rachel has joined the team. Very much looking forward to her tenure here with us. And Rachel, I will turn it to you.
Thanks, Ken. I am so excited to be with all of you this morning in our virtual meeting room here as part of my first public meeting with CalRecycle. It's an incredible honor to be joining such a wonderful team of dedicated and committed and hardworking state department workers. Sorry, it is an early morning after a long weekend. Very excited to be joining CalRecycle and working on behalf of the administration on so many important programs around recycling and reuse. Look forward to meeting all of you, hopefully in person, in a future public meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ken.
Very good. Thank you very much, Rachel. Really just very excited to have you on board. Really very much looking forward to working with you. So just by way of housekeeping, which I neglected to point out, we're using the GoToWebinar platform once again for our public meeting. If you wish to engage, ask questions, or comment on items, you will have to do so via the GoToWebinar application. Those who are participating via the webcast will only be able to view the meeting. So we're using the questions forum within the GoToWebinar app. If you have a question, please indicate that you do. We will unmute you and provide you the opportunity to pose your question. Before we move on, I did want to just provide a little bit of an update relative to the governor's budget. The governor's budget was released on January 8th. CalRecycle has 3 programmatic BCPs in play, and I just wanted to provide a brief overview of the 3 of them. The first is about the Beverage Container Recycling Program pilot projects. Many of you may be familiar with the pilots. What is proposed for the current fiscal year as well as the next fiscal year is an additional $5 million for each year to provide grants from the Beverage Container Pilot Program. And it will include trailer bill language that will expand the pilot program, primarily to provide more time. Those who've been following, SB 458 established the pilot program. That was in 2017. And in 2019, AB 54 authorized $5 million for 5 pilot projects. We currently have 5 pilots operating right now. They're in various stages of development and implementation. So this pilot program aims to increase the convenience of recycling in areas that lack beverage container recycling centers and allow for greater flexibility in how recycling centers choose to redeem beverage containers. The eligible pilot projects under the program can include stationary drop-off locations, mobile collection programs, truck-based recycling collection programs, and bag drop collection systems, just to name a few. The proposal, if authorized, would extend the program's sunset date to 2025 and allow for an additional 5 pilot projects for a maximum of 10 pilots at any one time. If a pilot project ends, a new pilot project can be approved. If monies are still available, the pilot recyclers may apply for additional funding. Another budget proposal that we have has to do with our implementation of Senate Bill 1383, short-lived climate pollutants. As the governor has made clear, climate change is a current emergency. And numerous sectors within Cal EPA, as well as elsewhere in the administration, are doing everything that they can to address this climate emergency. Part of that is short-lived climate pollutants. The budget includes a proposal for 5 permanent positions in the fiscal year 21-22, 4 additional positions in 22-23, and we'll phase those in over the 2 fiscal years. And these include an economist to track and analyze industry economic trends. We will have some environmental scientists, additional positions to assist support for our environmental justice efforts. The department also intends to redirect approximately 38 positions from our local assistance and market development branch to the Waste Permitting, Compliance, and Mitigation Division. And these redirected and newly requested positions will prioritize support for stakeholders, focusing on compliance support and oversight to implement the regulations. The third proposal that I'd like to share with you is AB 793. This legislation passed last year requires beverage manufacturers to utilize specific amounts of recycled content in CRB plastic beverage containers sold within the state. 15% in 2022, 25% in 2025, and 50% by 2030. To implement this legislation, the administration is proposing one position in the next fiscal year and an additional 5 positions in 23-24, and then 3 additional positions in 24-25 for a total of 9 permanent full-time positions at a cost of about $1.2 million ongoing from the Beverage Container Fund. We're also requesting about $500,000 annually beginning in 24-25 to conduct biennial studies that will help us understand the availability and the utilization of recycled content. The positions and the resources are necessary to assist with rulemaking, collect and compile data, develop reporting on annual compliance, developing corrective action plans, and provide legal support and auditing. It's just a real cursory high-level view. If you want to read more about these proposals, you can find them on the Department of Finance website. You go to their page, right in the middle is a section that identifies budget change proposals. Click on that and you can search for the department. I would recommend you search by the numeric code for the department, and that is 3970. You click on that and that will show a link to the 3 budget proposals that we're talking about. So should you have questions about that, please contact the legislative office, and we can guide you through and clarify anything that's within those budget change proposals. Moving on, I'm going to open it up to public comment for anything that's not on the agenda that stakeholders wish to discuss or bring to our attention. So if you do want to provide some public comment, you can raise your hand in the platform and we will unmute you to ask your questions. I will turn to Tina and Michelle to let us know if we do have any questions at this time.
It looks like Charlene has a question. Charlene, I'm gonna unmute you.
Go right ahead.
Charlene, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, actually, I didn't have a question in the beginning. The first person who was introducing y'all, there was a really bad echo, and then something happened, and then now you guys are crystal clear. And I was just testing my buttons to make sure they worked. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you for that. And I did notice that echo as well when I was speaking, and I'm glad to hear it resolved itself. So thank you for letting me know. Very good. Tina or Michelle, are there any other questions at this time?
No other questions at this time.
Very good. And so I will be moving along now to item C, program and issue updates. Ashley Yee will be providing an implementation update on SB 1383. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Ken. So before I give an update on 1383, I just want to share that CalRecycle will be hosting 2 funding webinars for recycling manufacturers. Again, not directly related to 1383, but more broad for recycling manufacturers. The first one will be on January 25th from 9 to 3, and it's about public funding. The second will be on February 11th about private funding, and it's going to start at 9 o'clock. An email should have went out via our listservs last week, but if you did not get it and would like to register, please shoot me or the SLCP inbox an email and I'll get you that registration. So that's exciting news that we're going to be hosting some funding webinars. So now on to 1383. As you guys know, CalRecycle has revamped and are continuing to release new SB 1383 web pages that include documents from the final rulemaking package as well as FAQs. CalRecycle has recently released a procurement calculator, which is an optional tool that may be used by cities and counties to assist them in planning and their procurement efforts to meet the SB 1383 procurement requirements. A procurement calculator webinar will be held on February 9th from 2 to 3 p.m. We sent out a listserv message last week with the link to the calculator and where it's located on the website and announcing the webinar. Again, if you did not get that and you'd like to register, please let me know via the SLCP inbox. CalRecycle will also be hosting regional webinars regarding 1383 implementation. Each regional webinar will be 3 hours long and will cover collection and Article 3, procurement and edible food recovery requirements. Each topic will be covered for 1 hour, and most of the time will be open for stakeholders to ask questions. Please note you do not only have to attend your region's webinar. CalRecycle will also be hosting one statewide webinar on solid waste facility requirements in regards to 1383. So please sign up for our SLCP listserv for more information on the dates. A listserv message and registration links should be going out this week. And also note, all of our webinars will be recorded to watch at a later time. However, they may take some time to get on our website due to ADA compliance, but we will get those out for you. Are there any questions?
We'll just give it a moment, and if Tina or Michelle can let us know if there are any questions, please do so. And thank you for
there's
that.
a question, but it's on a different item.
Is it an item that is coming up?
It's from Leonard Lang. So welcome. Maybe he has some questions.
It's on our rulemaking item.
Okay, then, okay, we have that coming up. So Leonard, if you don't mind, we will hold that question until we get to the rulemaking portion of the agenda. I'm going to assume that the question is about our rulemaking calendar. If I'm incorrect in that assumption, please let me know. Any questions for Ashley on the 1383 implementation update?
We have a hand raised from Arlene. Is that still?
No, Charlene, Arlene, yes.
Yes, Arlene, do you have a question on this current item?
On the statewide solid waste requirement. Now, that's a webinar with dates to come?
Yes, so right now, we will be releasing the dates, but just so you know, it will be on February 4th from 9 to 10. But the link for that will be released in a listserv message going out this week.
Thank you.
Very good. Arlene, thank you for your question. Any other questions on this particular item?
I don't see any more questions for this item.
Okay, very good. Just as a reminder, if you do want to ask a question or comment, it will be through the GoToWebinar portal. We will not be monitoring the comment portal, and those participating via just the webcast won't be able to comment or ask questions. Right now, I'm going to turn to Matt Hennigan to provide an update on several grant and loan items. So Matt, good morning to you, and it's all yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Ken. All right, so this first item, we are seeking approval for a scope of work for the recycled crumb rubber infill in hot mix asphalt design contract. This is a pretty innovative research contract for looking for uses for tire-derived crumb rubber that's been used as the infill layer in fields, in artificial turf playing fields. You'll recall that health concerns have emerged on the use of crumb rubber as an infill in these fields. That's currently being studied extensively by DTSC in partnership with CalRecycle, and we look forward to the research results, I believe, before the end of 2021. In the meantime, crumb rubber continues to be used as an infill material in California and even more commonly outside of California. and so that's why we want to continue research on the use of this material. So I just want to, a few more remarks about this. The Synthetic Turf Council predicts that this will be an increasing use of tire-derived material in California, and these fields require this infill layer, which adds traction and shock absorption to the field during its service life. That infill layer is composed of a mixture of sand and chrome rubber. And while that's very durable, a turf field needs replacement after about 8 or 10 years of service life. At replacement, the infill material is vacuumed up, producing a rubber and sand mixture. And that rubber sand mixture is usually landfilled, as there's no way to separate the crumb rubber from the sand cost effectively. Now, crumb rubber and sand are also critical components of rubberized asphalt. And this study is going to investigate the possibility of incorporating used turf infill into new rubberized asphalt. The study is going to look at issues like how much virgin material can be substituted with infill material. Will the process be able to handle any contamination that may have been picked up during the service life on the field? And will the infill material need processing prior to asphalt incorporation? And how can this process become economically viable? As turf fields gain in popularity, the amount of crumb rubber used and disposed will increase, and finding a new use for this end-of-life material is crucial to avoid landfilling of these tire-generated materials. So we've got a request for approval heading to the director to approve that scope of work. Are there questions on that, or shall we move on?
Let's give it a moment to see if we have any questions, Matt, and then we can move to the next one. Please.
2 questions, one from Doreen Smith-Power. Doreen, I'm going to unmute you, and you can ask your question.
No, it's actually not on the agenda item. I'm just trying to review the agenda at the same time I'm doing this, and I'm unable to do that. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty navigating the agenda at the same time I'm listening to the meeting. It's not on that specific point. That was my issue. And I have, if you're going to go to just webinar issues, I would like to see them start a little bit early so that everybody could, because I downloaded all the attachments yesterday and I got offline to go review those attachments and they're not coming up. But I would like to see the meeting, be able to start the meeting at least like 10 minutes beforehand, if that's what you're going to do for your public meetings. Because it's important to be able to, number one, get online, make sure you can review the agenda and be ready to start the meeting that way. That's my only comment right now.
Okay, thank you for that, Doreen. Am I understanding your point to be that the materials are not available? You were not able to access the materials until the meeting itself actually started?
No, I actually downloaded everything yesterday. I downloaded all the attachments yesterday, and that's fine. I'm just not being able to navigate the agenda at the same time I'm listening to the meeting. So that's important to be able to do that, and I can't do that on my screen right now. I mean, I can't navigate the actual agenda and follow you guys with the agenda items at the same time. So, I mean, I should be able to look at the agenda and scroll down and look what's coming next to formulate the questions at the same time as I'm reviewing listening to the meeting. And it was good that you're able to download attachments that were necessary, and I was able to do that yesterday and review them. But and some of the notices were there, and some of them, the attachments were there, and some of them weren't there. So I just wanted to say it's important to be able to navigate the actual agenda items. And part of the reason that we are doing recycling is to to be able to enjoy the environment at the same time. So I think it's important to, it's been kind of weighing heavy on my mind, but last meeting, there was an award given for actually creating a barrier to the ocean. So I have a little bit of I know there's some reasoning for that, but you got to remember the reason we're in recycling and reusing and we're working for the environment is to be able to use the environment. So I am for, being able to use that. That's why I recycle. That's why I do this. And that's why a number of people are participating and have worked very hard in this area and use their expertise to volunteer, to aside from trying to make money, to volunteer and to make sure you're able to use the environment and enjoy the environment for what it is. So that's it.
Well, thank you for your comments. Forgive me, I'm not recalling an award for a barrier to the ocean last month.
There was, but it's okay. I mean, there's probably a reason, but they wanted to park, jump the fence, and enjoy the waves. And part of that is when you do that, there was, but it's not. I mean, there was another reason for that too, but whatever. If you don't recall it, we could probably. I mean, there was, but it's not a. We need to make sure that you're able to view the ocean, and they were parking, and they created not really a barrier, but it was I don't know, but they created it.
I'm just going to move on, but I don't believe that what you're referring to is something that falls within CalRecycle's authority. It may have been something that the Coastal Commission perhaps did, not CalRecycle.
Okay, well.
Thank you for that. Matt, you have the next item as well. Unless there are any questions.
There's one more question from Doug. Doug, I'm going to unmute you. You are unmuted. Go ahead and say your question. You can ask your question, Doug. Okay.
Okay, Gary. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Right. Good morning, Rachel. Good morning, Ken. Good morning, Matt. This is Doug Kobold, California Product Stewardship Council. I do have a question on this item. Matt, on this item, one thing I've come to understand, I'm an avid soccer player up until COVID, of course, and we've all been shut down, but I play on the synthetic turf field on a weekly basis, and it is a crumb rubber sand mixture. And this field is in desperate need of a replacement here in Davis. But the question I have is based on a conversation I had with a consultant who was looking to possibly develop a sports complex here in Davis and develop new fields that would be synthetic turf fields. Now, what they were talking about is actually going away from the crumb rubber sand mixture and heading towards more of a cork sand mixture. It's still lightweight, still cushiony, but doesn't have the same effects of the crumb rubber as far as the off-gassing, et cetera. So is this study going to consider the diversion away from crumb rubber? So I applaud the idea of mixing that into asphaltic concrete, but is the study also going to look at this diminishing supply of material, potential diminishing supply of material? So that is my question.
So thank you, Doug. Yes, you're right. There are a number of alternatives coming on the market for infill in artificial turf fields, but the industry projects continued growth in the use of crumb rubber as well, just because more and more of these artificial turf fields are being put in and refurbished. Crumb rubber retains a cost advantage to some of these alternatives, and so if looking into the future, we really didn't see a long-term supply of this material, then we wouldn't invest in the research. But we do. The projections are that both these alternatives and crumb rubber infill will continue to grow in adoption. I also want to mention, I didn't mention earlier, Due to these, in part to these health concerns about off-gassing, CalRecycle no longer subsidizes the recycling of tires into turf infill, but just because of market action, it continues to be adopted. So thank you for your question, Doug.
Thanks, Matt.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Any other questions on this item? No,
I do not
Matt?
see any other questions.
Thank you very much. Matt, used oil payment program.
Yeah, so thank you. This information item is about the awards and distribution of payments for the used oil payment program. We don't have a presentation, but I'll just summarize what's going on here. The used oil payment program provides funding to local governments for developing and maintaining used oil and oil filter recycling and collection programs. Some of the most common activities that jurisdictions spend their funding on include maintaining a used oil and filter collection program, used oil filter exchange events where you bring in an old dirty filter and you get a new one, school presentations and educational outreach related to the proper collection and recycling of used oil, curbside programs for collection of used oil and oil filters, and also used oil stormwater mitigation activities. So due to the impacts of COVID-19, less people are driving, less people are changing their oil, and revenues to the oil fund are down. And so there's a formula in law that dictates how the total allocation is calculated and how it should be distributed. So we've had to reduce that allocation from last year's $7.1 million to $5.23 million. The methodology for calculating that payment amount for each jurisdiction is found in PRC section 48653A3. And since sufficient funds are not available to issue the full $11 million that's envisioned in that section, the amount available is calculated by taking half of the amount that remains in the fund after expenditures, after certain expenditures are made, and then allocating that based on roughly a per capita basis. Cities receive 5,000, counties receive 10, and then on top of that, there's a per capita payment. CalRecycle received 199 eligible applications for this cycle, and staff is requesting approval of all 199 for a total of $5.23 million. Table 1, if you click on the link on the agenda, lists the applicants and their recommended payment amounts. I have approved these payment awards and have signed the RFA, the request for approval. I want to extend my thanks to the staff that worked on this item: Annabelle Farrell, Ashraf Batavia, Baljat Beering, Natalie Gandolfo, and Maria Elena Kennedy. Thank you to the used oil program staff. Are there questions about used oil payments?
I don't see any questions at this time.
Okay, well, if they come in late, we'll revisit that after this next agenda item, which is the awards for the Farm and Ranch Solid Waste Cleanup and Abatement Grant Program. The purpose of this grant is to clean up illegal dumping and implement preventative measures on sites that are zoned for a broad range of agricultural activities. Funding covers disposal of the illegally dumped material or recycling as appropriate, equipment, signage, fencing, things like security cameras to prevent future dumping, personnel and administrative costs. Both private property and public land are eligible. Applications are submitted through a resource conservation district, city, county, or federally recognized Native American tribe. So private landowners partner with one of those entities to submit the application. $537,000 is available from fiscal year 2021 funds. This award represents the second of 3 cycles offered each fiscal year. So we're almost always accepting and awarding applications in this program. CalRecycle received 3 eligible applications, all from resource conservation districts: the Coachella Valley RCD, the Glenn County RCD, and the RCD of Monterey County. These applications are requesting a total of $105,000, which I have approved based on the recommendation of staff. Each of these RCDs is conducting one site cleanup apiece. Coachella Valley will partner with Urban Conservation Corps of the Inland Empire to conduct the cleanup. Details about each of these projects are available in the RFA. And I want to thank Coachella Valley for partnering with the Conservation Corps and helping us achieve their job training as well as environmental mission. $432,000 remains for the third cycle. The maximum amount awarded per site is $50,000, and each applicant can be awarded up to $200,000 per fiscal year. So if you're aware of an illegal dumping activity in a rural area, please consider applying. Thank you so much to the staff, our illegal dumping team, and the financial services management branch staff who worked on this: Stephanie Becker, Maria Elena Kennedy, Jeff Lynn, and Lori Kukamoto. I'm happy to take questions on farm and ranch cleanup.
There are no questions at this time.
Very good. All right. So our last item in this section of the agenda is approval of a Recycling Market Development Zone, or RMDZ loan, in the amount of $2 million to Replanet Packaging LLC. Replanet Packaging has requested a $2 million loan. This is a low interest loan through a revolving loan fund from the RMDZ loan program. Replanet manufactures plastic packaging primarily for produce and other food products from recycled PET flake. They're making thermoform molded containers. Their facility is located in Visalia, California, which is in the greater Southern San Joaquin Valley Recycling Market Development Zone. And because they're located in a zone, that makes them eligible for these loan funds. The funds will be used to purchase new equipment to expand and increase the amount of recycled plastic feedstock that they use in their products. The company estimates the loan will allow them to divert an additional 2,610 tons of plastics each year and will create 12 new jobs. This approval is within my delegated authority, and I plan to approve this request pending any comments we receive today. If there are any comments, look forward to hearing them.
No questions at this time or comments.
Very good. Thank you, Matt.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe we'll be coming back to you later in the agenda on a couple of items. So for right now, forgive me. Do want to reconcile something. Oops, I'm sorry. The agenda just disappeared from me for a moment. Matt, the loan amount for the RMDZ, is it $2 million?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. I just want to be sure we're being, because I think that's what the agenda notes is, $2 million.
Oh, did I misstate that? Yes, it's a $2 million loan.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting that. Very good. Mark DeBee, good to see you this morning. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Very good. Paulina, good to see you as well. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right, Ken. I just wanted to do a little bit more intro on our review of the solid waste and tire facility permits before I pass it on to Paulina. These are informational. We don't make decisions on permits during the monthly meeting. It's to inform folks of what permits, either for solid waste facilities or for tire permits, are in process. Occasionally, Paulina will recognize a permit that's on the agenda that had been acted on prior to the meeting, but it was more than likely posted on a previous meeting and talked about at that time. So I just wanted to remind folks that this is informational, that we post the permits that are in process on our website within days of receiving them, and that staff contacts are identified and interested members of the public or stakeholders can contact the point of contact and get more information or ask questions at any time. They are not limited to this venue to do that. And we welcome comments and observations because it greatly improves our process in ensuring that these permits are correct and enforceable and do what they're supposed to do, and that is to guide the facilities, operations, and design to ensure that public health and the environment are protected. So with that lengthy introduction, I'll pass it to Paulina to review the current suite of permits in process.
Thank you so much, Mark, and welcome, Rachel. It's good to see you. First of all, I'd like to say good morning to everyone. As Mark mentioned, I'm Paulina Lawrence, and I'm the Chief of the Permitting and Assistance Branch here at CalRecycle. And I'll be providing an overview of the solid waste and tire facility actions. So first of all, like Mark mentioned earlier, I will be mentioning what the department has concurred on from last month's previous agenda. So the department concurred on the revised solid waste facilities permit for Escondido Resource Recovery on December 28, 2020. This facility is located in San Diego County, and action was needed by January 24th, 2021. The department also concurred on the modified solid waste facilities permit for San Timoteo Sanitary Landfill, and that was on December 28, 2020. This facility is located in San Bernardino County, and action was needed by January 18th, 2021. And lastly, the department concurred on the new solid waste facilities permit for Edom Hill Compost on January 11, 2021. This facility is located in Riverside County, and the action was needed by January 31st, 2020. Continuing on the agenda is CRM Company with LLC, which is located in the city of Stockton. It's a revised major waste tire facility permit. Action is needed by April 27, 2021. Also continuing is Red Bluff Landfill, located in Tehama County. It's a revised solid waste facilities permit. Action is needed by February 7th, 2021. Additionally, Red Bluff Materials Recovery Facility, also located in Tehama County, will be continuing on as well. This is a revised solid waste facilities permit. Action is needed by February 7th, 2021. New to the agenda for this month is Avenal Regional Landfill. This facility is located in Kings County. It's a modified solid waste facilities permit, and action is needed by February 15th, 2021. Preliminary review of the permit package indicates that there'll be no increase in the amount or types of materials that can be received at Avenal Regional Landfill. There will be no increase in the boundaries of the landfill or the area designated for waste disposal, and no new activities are being requested. The following list identifies proposed changes to the current solid waste facilities permit that was issued on April 25th, 2005. That will be an update to the first page of the permit to reflect the total permitted design capacity of 36.3 million cubic yards, including the waste cap and liner. An update to the estimated closure year from 2020 to 2056. And this is due to the facility receiving less waste than anticipated over the last 15 years. An addition of language clarifying that the estimated closure year is variable depending on the actual tonnage received. Updates of the documents from other regulatory agencies that are incorporated into the solid waste facilities permit by reference. Updates to the joint technical document as indicated in the permit review report completed by the local enforcement agency on April 21st, 2020. And lastly, updates to the existing language to the joint technical document describing operations to be written in the present tense. Also new to the agenda is the City of Santa Monica Transfer Station. This is located in Los Angeles County, and it's a modified solid waste facilities permit. Action is needed by February 26th, 2021. Preliminary review of the permit package indicates the following proposed changes. Decrease of the permitted area from 5.3 acres to 2.7 acres, and incorporate the updated transfer processing report. The next thing I'd like to go over is from our last monthly meeting are the waivers that have been issued by the local enforcement agencies and reviewed upon by CalRecycle. And that is, there was one in Los Angeles County, Lancaster Landfill and Recycling Center. This waiver was approved or given due to fire debris to accept disaster debris and is effective until May 4th, 2021. Another one was provided for Riverside County for Moreno Valley Solid Waste Recycling and Transfer Facility. This one is also due to COVID-19, and this is for changes in permitted daily tonnage and is effective till February 20th, 2021. Next, we have San Diego County and their facility for EDCO CDI recycling facility. This one is also due for COVID-19, and it's for the permitted daily tonnage and site storage capacity and is effective until May 13th, 2021. Next, we have Mono County, where Walker Landfill and Walker Transfer Station will have a waiver for tonnage, traffic, and operating hour changes due to fires. And this one is effective till April 16th, 2021. And then lastly, we have Kings County for Kettleman Hills Facility, B-17. And this is for changes in tonnage, traffic operating hours. And this one is due to fires as well and is effective through till May 4th, 2021. This is all I have for this month. Are there any questions?
There are no questions at this time.
Thank you, Paulina. There might be some later on. I'm reflecting on that last part of the report on all of the waivers, and we've been hearing it now for months and months and months. It's, optimistically, I wouldn't have proposed this 6 months ago, but maybe we need to change the title of this section to include a report on all the waivers in a pessimistic way. Since they're in volume, they're outweighing the number of permit actions as they are. But it's unfortunate, but it's good that we keep on top of the waiver information because it does adjust those permits that we were talking about, that you were talking about, in terms of temporarily allowing things like additional tonnage or hours. And there is a robust process that operators need to go through, working with the local enforcement agency and then also connecting with CalRecycle to make those requests. So it's good that we keep people informed about that. So Tina, did we get any questions during my monologue?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you.
Paulina. And thank you for your point, Mark, on waivers. I mean, it is a sort of tragic reality of where we find ourselves. And, we're dealing in 25 different counties at this point. And, we hope that this circumstance gets better. But yeah, it is a very responsive, coordinated effort that happens at the local level. And the operators themselves, the landfills themselves, also have to make some adaptations and changes operationally to allow for the ongoing monitoring that needs to happen, with the debris removal operations. And we fully respect that is not an easy thing for them to do, but everyone does sort of come together to make that work. And so it's appreciated. It speaks to the subtle depth and reach of disaster, and not just the response, but in this case, the recovery of it. So appreciate your remarks.
Definitely. Okay, then at your pleasure, Ken, we'll move on to the next item. And that is our twice a year report on all things waste tire enforcement. And Kyle Emery is going to make the presentation. We'll be reviewing significant and not so significant enforcement activities that we've been conducting over the last 6 months or more. A lot of statistics there. So again, if you want more information about, and this is just a verbal presentation, but if you want more information, you can reach out to Kyle and he can provide you additional details about what he's about to review. So Kyle, please.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome, Rachel. Yes, as Mark indicated, I'll be presenting the second half of the semi-annual waste time enforcement report. My name is Kyle Emery. I'm the North Unit Supervisor of the waste time enforcement section. We typically have these meetings twice a year, and typically are in the January and July public meetings, and covering the TPIDs. As regularly reported, the waste tire and the California Waste Tire Universe is measured by the number of active tire program identification numbers, or referred to as TPIDs. TPIDs consist of all facilities or locations identified by our program as having received or removed tires from their location. As regularly monitored by our program, there continues to be an average of approximately 32,000 active TPIDs in our universe. The program also sees on average approximately 1,500 new TPIDs created each reporting period, as well as the same number of TPIDs closed. This amount of new and closed TPIDs is due to new businesses being created or closing, or the changing of ownership. Additionally, there are consistently on an average of around 1,400 registered waste tire haulers in California, which is authorized to haul 10 or more waste tires on public roads. Covering inspections. CalRecycle and its local tire enforcement agent grantees inspect all these facilities statewide based on performance measures, goals established with the 5-year tire plan. Inspectors in the program inspect all permitted waste tire facilities annually and follow work plans to inspect all hauler facilities every 24 months and inspect all remaining generator sites every 36 months. The next set of data reflects inspections conducted at waste tire facilities in each of these goals is from June 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2020. During this time period, CalRecycle and local tire enforcement agents performed a total of approximately 6,200 waste tire inspections. Of those, CalRecycle staff inspected 951 of those facilities, and the remaining balance of 5,267 were conducted by the local TEAs. Of those inspections, 82 inspections resulted in a notice of violation, and during that same time period, 12 extensions were issued, and then 27 cases were referred to CalRecycle for further escalated enforcement actions. Covering inspections during the COVID-19 pandemic, since March of last year, the tire enforcement staff had needed to change their approach to conducting waste tire inspections. In an effort to continue with normal operations, the program has continued to carry out program requirements, conducting both phone and virtual and in-person inspections when the conditions are safe, using all physical distance protocols set up by the health agencies and the department. For this reporting period, CalRecycle staff has completed over 450 or 48% of their inspections remotely, and the remaining 590 or 52% were in-person inspections at the facility. Currently, staff are only conducting in-person inspections where enforcement action is being taken. It is projected that the vast majority of the 5,200 inspections completed by TEAs have been conducted in person for the same reporting period of June 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2020. These statistics are consistent with the historical averages during normal operations, showing our service remained uninterrupted to the regulated community. Covering the hauler program, the next data set reflects number of complaints submitted to the program for hauler related issues for the reporting period of June 1st through November 30th, 2020. The hauler program received a total of 261 complaints, of which 195 were for non-registered vehicles hauling 10 or more tires and not leaving a comprehensive trip log at a solid waste disposal facility. The program also received 66 hauler observation reports from local or from staff or local TEAs that observed significant errors and omissions on comprehensive trip logs or observed a illegal hauling activity while out in the field. All of these submittals are issued a complaint number and investigated by hauler staff. If warranted, these complaints will lead to warning letters of violation to first-time offenders or penalty letters to those entities that are regularly not found in compliance. Additionally, our program technicians just completed our annual wastewater hauler registrations for the calendar year 2020. As of January 4th, there were 1,137 registered haulers that have been processed for 2021, and 620 of those renewals were online, which is a 9% increase over last calendar year, which is something that we're aiming to increase yearly. Also, 279 haulers that were registered in 2020 did not submit renewal applications, and the hauler enforcement program contacted all operators to ensure that they did not want to renew and mail cancellation letters to those that are not authorized to call 10 or more. Sorry. There was a 21% increase in cancellations this year versus last year. Also would like to acknowledge the work that our program technicians have completed for the annual process. I'd like to call out and recognize the staff: Carla Fontanella, Joanna Ramirez, Maria Bardo, Yoon Turn, and Nathan Gutierrez. I would also like to thank Oakland Hensley. He's the North Unit, he's the hauler supervisor who managed this process for the first time with great success. Finally, I would like to thank Roger Evans and our entire IT group for streamlining the online registration process. Additionally, I'd like to thank Susanna Fong for tirelessly working and processing and disseminating to our inspectors all of our hauler complaints to ensure that our statewide observations are swiftly addressed. Covering enforcement actions. Next, I'll review the escalated enforcement actions for our program that had taken since the last report and is covering from July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. For hauler enforcement, for this reporting period, there was one streamlined penalty letter issued to Trans-Pacific Recycling. This penalty was issued in November 2020 for illegal hauling and not completing waste tire manifest. The penalties totaled $3,000. Covering hauler denials, there were two haulers that were denied hauler registration. They were Duran's Tire Recycling and Tire Transportation. Covering the cleanup and abatement orders, or CAOs. For this reporting period, we issued two cleanup abatement orders, and they were closed out. First location was Trans-Pacific Recycling. It was issued in November of 2020, and was a legal waste tire facility of having more than 500 waste tires at the site. And on January 6th of this year, we inspected the facility and confirmed that all tires were removed. And at this location, approximately 6,600 tires were removed. The location is now in compliance. Next location for the CAO was for RPM Tire Disposal in Sacramento County. This CAO was also issued in 2020 for an illegal waste tire facility of more than 500 tires. And in December, the facility was inspected and found that only 850 tires remained, and later received confirmation that the tires were all removed by the property owner, and CAO was closed out. There was approximately 6,000 tires that were removed from this location. After removal of all the tires, the property owner evicted the tenant, and the location is now closed. Upcoming, we'll have two administrative hearings coming up in February of this year. With that said, I'd like to thank our attorneys, Heather Hunt and Katie Nystrom, for their contributions to the cleanup and abatement orders and the hauler denials for this reporting period, as well as preparation for the scheduled hearings. In other news, the Waste Tire Enforcement Program is proud to announce one new member to the team. His name is Fernando Rodriguez, and he'll be joining our Central Unit. I would also like to give thanks to Jared Weathers, who is a committed member to the debris removal operations, and who we recently learned has accepted a position in the solid waste section. So Jared, we're going to miss you in the tire enforcement section. I hope you wish you best of luck over in the solid waste team. We'll see you around once we're in the office. Also, too, the program will be conducting its first technical training series, virtual technical training series in April of 2021. Staff has been working toward the completing and recording their presentations in preparation for the TTS. In closing, on behalf of the Waste Tire Enforcement Section, I'd like to continue my appreciation and gratitude to all staff and local agencies that have been involved in keeping this program moving forward in this moment of time. Although everyone is severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Any questions for anyone at all?
Hey, thanks, Kyle. We'll wait a bit to see if there's any questions. I warned people about the volume of information here to absorb, and offered that they could reach you later and ask specific questions. It's a huge program, lots of regulated entities, thousands and thousands of inspections. But if you were tracking all of that information, out of those inspections, very few non-compliant situations, and they were addressed through enforcement pretty quickly. And then another key bit of information that Kyle shared was we continue to identify abandoned, in this case, tires, not necessarily illegally disposed, traditionally, if you will, on the side of the road or vacant lots, but these were active sites, and for one reason or another, the folks that were operating them decided to leave the tires behind, and the program was able to recognize those situations and address them through enforcement and then eventually through cleanup. So a very, very robust program. And so did we get any questions, Tina?
Yes, we have a question from Arlene. Arlene, I'm going to unmute you. You can ask your question.
Hi, good morning, Kyle. My name's Arlene Morales. I'm from Los Angeles County Public Works in our environmental programs division. My question is on the waste tire enforcement. You mentioned that there's January and July public meetings. Are those like virtual meetings?
Typically, they're not conducted virtually. They're usually done in person. We also provide a link on our public webpage to access the public meeting. But due to the COVID pandemic, we have been conducting some of these public meetings virtually. So once we resume to normal operations, we'll be having the meetings at the headquarters in Sacramento, California.
I think you may be referencing this particular meeting, right, Kyle, where we share this enforcement information along with the other parts of the agenda twice a year, and that's in January and July. So there isn't a separate meeting where we talk about enforcement. It's this particular venue that we do that.
Okay, thank you. We do tire recycling. I just want to make sure I make my notes for that person are correct. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do locally. This is a program that includes partnership with tire enforcement grantees, and they do a bulk of the inspections, and we really appreciate that they have continued to do those inspections during the COVID situation, some of them virtually, some of them in person. So thank you for your question. Thank you for the work that the staff there in Southern California do.
Thank you, sir.
We have another question from Doreen regarding tires. Doreen, you are unmuted. You can ask your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, I appreciate the cleanup of the tires. I wanted to know reuse of the tires and enforcement because it does turn into illegal dumping if you don't do something about reuse of the tires. So what are we doing about that? The actual reuse of the tires. I appreciate the cleanup of the tires.
Right, and cleanup is becoming more and more rare because tires are being moved from the point of generation. Tire dealers, tire shops, they are being tracked through a manifest system to a final point of deposition where they more than likely are being recycled. My colleague Matt was on, well, if you will. Matt's program is more dialed into all the various ways that tires are being recycled or reused. Because we have a role in providing some grants and incentives, if you will, to those entities. However, we do know that tires do end up still in landfills. They need to be processed so they don't create issues in operation at the landfills before they can be disposed. But we do have a percentage of tires going to landfills to be disposed, therefore avoiding illegal disposal. But maybe Matt would like to share maybe a brief list of various ways that tires are being utilized in California.
Yeah, I'm happy to. CalRecycle has a number of programs to incentivize the recycling of used tires. Many used tires are retreaded and used in, generally truck tires get new treads and can be reused 6 times before reaching their end of life. But CalRecycle incentivizes the use of rubberized asphalt concrete by making grant payments to local governments to incorporate tires into paving. It actually extends the life of the paving and accrues a benefit to the taxpayer by making the infrastructure last that much longer. We also have a grant program incentivizing the use of chrome rubber in manufactured products, generally molded products. Think mats and molded traffic cones and curb stops and things like that. So about, unfortunately, approximately 14% of tires, waste tires generated in California still do end up in the landfill. But that's an 86% diversion rate, which is not bad. Some of that diversion rate is exported for use as tire-derived fuel, where it replaces fossil fuels in cement kilns, but there are air quality impacts of that. And we continue to try to increase the recycling of tires rather than the use of them as fuel. But comparatively, I want to congratulate the team on a 86% recycling rate. More details are available on our tire market development report, which is done annually, and also our 5-year tire plan explains how CalRecycle invests its funds to recycle tires. Thank you for your interest.
Great. Thanks, Matt, for jumping in on that part. And just to maybe emphasize, it's the enforcement program that helps ensure that tires move to where they can be recycled. Certainly, it may be economically less to dump tires on the side of the road, but because the tires have value for recycling, and the haulers picking up those tires need to affirm that they have delivered them to an end use that's approved. We have a better assurance that there's a constant flow of tires into those facilities, right, so that it can continue to do the great work they do. So,
well, do you need help, and where is it with the reuse, the encouragement of the reuse of the materials in other areas? Like you could use it in sporting equipment, you could use it in, you could even use it in the soles, the moms would kill us, but the soles of tennis shoes. I'm not kidding. We encourage using the environment, but that's where I would like to see. I think that we're at a place where we need to encourage the reuse of it. We're cleaning up, we're getting it to the various places, but the reuse of it, and I know we can only reuse it so much, but encouraging using it in other things.
Very good. Doreen,
Yep.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just to say, yes, we totally agree, and we're always looking for new opportunities to do just what you're saying. So thank you very much for your interest and questions. Ken?
No, I was just going to say thank you, Doreen, for your comments and questions. And I think the two reports that Matt mentions are really good sources of information and metrics on what we collect, how we collect it, and where it ends up. But I really do appreciate your questions. Kyle, thank you for that report. I was sitting here reflecting, given that it's Director Wagner's first public meeting. I was reflecting on my first public meeting just about 8 years ago. And every time, that very first time, I remember Scott Smithline leaning over to me and saying, listen to this, these numbers are fantastic. And I've never forgotten that. And I'm always impressed at just the sheer volume of what is reviewed on a regular basis, the number of sites, and my compliments to you and to the team for making this work under these extraordinary circumstances. Working creatively to still get that important oversight and enforcement done, and not enough can be said about the local partners who are also part of this. So thank you very much. It's terrific.
And I just want to echo, Kyle, that comment from Ken. He texted me as you were starting your presentation and said, this is a really impressive program. I couldn't agree more. Having worked in toxics and tires for a long time in the legislative arena, watching how well this program has evolved to really address the problem. I think I told Ken last week, remembering back to not a decade ago when this program was really a burgeoning program to deal with the very heinous damage that was happening to our state from the tire fires, Central Valley to the North Coast. And to just see this program's success and ability is really manifested in the fact that we don't see the same kind of emergencies and hazards at the regularity that we saw a decade ago. So really congratulations to your program and all of the hard work on that program. I should say that to all of these successful programs, but much like Ken, I am very impressed with how much this program has been able to accomplish in the last 6 months.
Thank you. Just want to thank Mark, Christy, Henry, Kim Solid for helping me help us lead the program and getting through the initial stages of the pandemic to keep the program going. And overall, I think one impressive number is that I think we processed or managed 52 million waste tires in 2019. So that's a pretty impressive number. So.
That's terrific. 52 million. Wow. That's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Ken. I think we're done with that part of the agenda.
Just want to check once before we move to e-waste, or if there were any more questions. My apologies if I stepped on.
No, there are no more questions.
Great.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to now turn it back to Matt for e-waste.
All right, thank you, Ken. So I just want to announce a workshop. This is about the structure for pursuing multiple covered electronic waste recycling payment rates. We'll be doing an informal workshop on February 9th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. CalRecycle will conduct this informal workshop prior to beginning the formal rulemaking process to finalize the existing emergency regulations. The purpose of this workshop is to present and discuss proposed regulations that allow multiple payment rates to be paid to approved recyclers in the program. In May 2018, CalRecycle approved emergency regulations that split the single covered electronic waste recycling payment rate into separate payment rates for cathode ray tube electronic waste, the old CRT TVs and monitors, and non-CRT covered electronic waste, which is flat screens and laptops. Those are very different technologies and require different ways to handle them. CalRecycle concluded that multiple payment rates were necessary because of the increased time required to process flat screens and also the limited value of the resulting residual materials. The emergency regulations were re-adopted in May 2020, you might recall from a prior public meeting. and are set to expire in May 2022. So it's necessary to do formal, rulemaking, non-emergency rulemaking. The workshop will be held via webinar, and stakeholders must register in advance to participate. So if you are an e-waste stakeholder, this is important to you, and please do register in advance. Happy to take questions on that item.
Very good. Thank you, Matt.
I don't see any questions at this time for that item.
Very good. Matt, I think the next two items follow you as well, so we can go ahead and pivot to those, which is the Paint Stewardship Program annual report. I believe we have a presentation from Stephanie, and then just a quick update on 1335.
That's absolutely right. This is an action item for consideration of California Paint Stewardship Program's Year 8 annual report, and Stephanie Fernandez will present staff's analysis and compliance recommendation regarding Paint Care's annual report. Stephanie?
Good morning, Stephanie. Oh, we can't hear you.
Muted.
Oh, sorry. Good morning. One moment while I share my screen. It's nice to see everyone.
Nice to see you as well.
Can you all see that? Okay, perfect.
We can.
Thanks, Matt, for the introduction. And in this presentation, I'll be summarizing staff's analysis of Paint Care's Year 8 annual report that led to a recommendation of compliance. Oops. So Paint Care's Year 8 annual report covers the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. In Year 8, Paint Care increased the convenience of paint collection opportunities, continued to properly manage collected paint in an environmentally sound fashion, and reduced the financial burden on local governments for paint management. Paint Care estimates that local governments have saved over $88 million since the program began and save an estimated $14 million per year based on current collection, transportation, and processing costs. These laudable Year 8 results occurred despite impacts from COVID-19 during the last several months of the reporting year, which I'll talk a little more about shortly. Paint Care has made it convenient for residents and businesses to recycle paint by establishing drop-off sites at paint retailers, partnering with household hazardous waste facilities and door-to-door programs, holding collection events, and providing a direct pickup service to entities that have accumulated more than 200 gallons of paint. At the end of Year 8, Paint Care had partnered with 793 permanent no-cost collection sites and continued to exceed its distribution goal by providing 98.9% of California's population with access to a drop-off site within 15 miles of their residence. Staff commend Paint Care's ongoing and persistent efforts to recruit new drop-off sites and to recuperate the 84 sites lost due to the unanticipated closure of all Orchard Supply hardware stores last year. Paint Care has met its density goal in 54 of 73 regions, demonstrating progress by meeting this target in 3 additional areas compared to Year 7, showing Paint Care's continued efforts to increase program convenience. Additionally, Paint Care partnered with 469 direct pickups of paint via its large volume pickup service, which is another way Paint Care offers free and convenient collection opportunities to businesses and other entities that accumulate large volumes of paint. I'd like to show a couple examples that demonstrate Paint Care's commitment to growing program convenience for California consumers. Paint Care employs 6 regional coordinators in California who regularly visit drop-off sites at retailers and local HHW facilities, check on operations, answer questions, and provide additional outreach materials. By doing this, Paint Care maintains an intimate understanding of local and regional needs, both of drop-off sites and the consumers who use them. For example, Paint Care has used this knowledge to provide education and outreach materials such as the program brochure, which is available in 19 different languages, all of which are also available online in downloadable formats. In Year 8, after 3 years of persistent efforts, Paint Care was able to establish a contract and add 4 drop-off sites in Modoc County, which is an amazing accomplishment, especially in California's 3rd least populated county. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic affected the program in several ways, including temporary closures of over half of paint drop-off sites in spring 2020 and suspension of Paint Care's large volume pickup service from March through May. Both of these unavoidable impacts resulted in a decrease in the volume of paint collected to 3.6 million gallons. Paint Care responded quickly to the pandemic by modifying its outreach strategy to inform the public of the temporary site closures and shifted some of its outreach to encourage consumers to properly store and use paint at home. Staff commend Paint Care for its prompt response to COVID impacts and look forward to paint collection bouncing back in next year's annual report. In year 8, paint disposition remained relatively similar to prior years for both latex and oil-based paint. We are pleased to see that Paint Care recruited 4 additional reuse stores, which contributed to an additional 20,000 gallons of paint reuse. However, paint-to-paint recycling decreased from 71% last year to 68% this year, and energy recovery of latex paint increased from 12% last year to 16% this year, which is concerning since energy recovery is lower on the waste management hierarchy. Staff intend to work with Paint Care regarding strategies that Paint Care could employ to increase the amount of paint recycled by getting more paint delivered to processors who have higher recycling rates, such as by providing a financial incentive for haulers or recyclers who achieve higher rates of paint-to-paint recycling. The COVID-19 pandemic affected program finances in year 8, which resulted in lower than expected expenses and further increased the reserve balance to $57 million. Paint Care spent $31 million in year 8, about $3 million less than last year, primarily because less paint was collected, which led to a decrease in collection, transportation, and processing costs. Paint Care also decreased outreach expenses due to postponing some advertising to avoid directing consumers to closed collection sites. Additionally, Paint Care did not estimate investment return in its financial projections, although over $2 million of investment income was generated in year 8. While staff are concerned with the continued increase of Paint Care's reserve balance, we recognize that impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic contributed to the increase of the program's reserve balance. Staff will discuss with Paint Care how it plans to improve its projection in future years. Additionally, Paint Care's annual report states that it anticipates using a portion of its excess reserve funds beginning in year 9 and in subsequent years, so we expect that next year's annual report will show a decrease in the reserve balance. Despite impacts from COVID-19, Paint Care continues to properly manage collected paint in an environmentally sound fashion, offers convenient paint collection opportunities to residents and businesses, and has reduced the financial burden on local governments for paint management. As a result, staff recommend that Paint Care's Year 8 annual report be found compliant. We would like to thank Paint Care, particularly Jeremy Jones, for continuing to work with us to ensure the ongoing success of the program, especially during this unprecedented time. That concludes my presentation, and I'll hand it back to Matt for questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks.
I think there is one question to me.
Oh, and we do have a comment. I know we have a comment from Jeremy Jones with the Paint Care organization.
Okay, I'll find his, but right now, you said Jeremy? I don't see a comment from Jeremy. I see a comment from Doug. Let me unmute Doug.
Thank you.
Doug, you're unmuted. You can ask your question.
Great, thank you. I wanted to start off by thanking Marjane, Jeremy, and their staff. They're doing an excellent job running this program overall. It's been one of the ones that we like to tout as more successful of the product stewardship programs in California. So I did want to start off with that. I do have a few concerns that I wanted to raise. They're very similar to what CalRecycle has as well, and Stephanie has already alluded to, which is the high reserve. And I understand definitely an increase in the reserve is due to the COVID impacts. So we can see that happening. We would like to see that reserve go down. I do have a few concerns about the energy recovery for latex paint. So there are two different energy recoveries, both latex and then oil-based. Back in the 2014 report, there was only energy recovery listed for oil-based. There was no energy recovery listed for latex, so one could only assume there wasn't energy recovery being done back in the 2014, 2013 timeframe. So that's a concern when we see certainly year over year, while most of the quantities went down a little bit because of COVID, we saw over 10% increase in energy recovery on latex. So certainly that's a little bit concerning. Why is that particular one going up when all the other ones went down? Stephanie said it absolutely right. Energy recovery is not the highest on the hierarchy. We'd love to see more reuse. I think Paint Care has done a really good job of tripling the reuse since that 2013, 2014 report. So we applaud them there. We'd love to see that continue, increasing the reuse fee or payment that they pay to the HSW facilities, and others have certainly helped, and we'd love to see that continue. We'd also like to see more increase, and maybe this is something that's just not clear here, and I'll need to go back and look at the stewardship plan, but what I'm not seeing is any kind of a grant funding allocation. What are they doing with grant funding to get the entrepreneurs to step out and make more products out of this, other than just drying it back and turn it into ADC, which is a very small amount, thankfully. But maybe get some of this other stuff that's going into disposal, especially one thing that I'm not seeing in consideration here is, what about all the containers? And maybe that is what attributes to a lot of the disposal, is the actual containers that the paint recyclers receive when they receive the product. What happens to those containers? How many of those are actually getting recycled? And especially now with blue sky, China blue sky, and really nowhere for these materials to go. What's happening to those? Are those adding to the disposal? Is there another way we can get rid of those containers through some kind of grant funding and entrepreneurship to advance this? I think, again, they're doing a great job. I think there's more to be done. There's a huge reserve here I think that they could use to start spurning a lot of this innovation and get more of these materials recycled to the higher and best use on the hierarchy. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. For your comment about the grant, I would like to add that last year, Paint Care launched their first grant program, which awarded $100,000 to one of the California recyclers, Visions Recycling. And they've used the money this year to, the grant purpose was to recycle latex paint that cannot currently be recycled back into paint. So Visions has been using the grant to recycle that latex paint into cement products. And it's currently, their products are being sold in multiple locations throughout California. So that was definitely, we were excited to see that result from the grant.
Stephanie, thank you for that. I would like to add to that, only that, and I think that's a great step, but my experience in this industry, a lot of these the machines they need to procure to develop these products, to manufacture these products, are in the $1 to $2 million range. And so if Paint Care is capable of being able to maybe issue some higher level grants, even $500,000, low interest loans, anything like that, to help these folks get the money they need to start these innovative processes, I think would be a very big help.
Hey, Doug, this is Allison Williams. I have a couple other comments in response to your comments. Fully hear you on the grant funding, and we're also supportive of increasing funding that'll help get more paint recycled or reused for sure. Regarding energy recovery for latex paint, I believe that has always been happening. In the early years of the Paint Care program, in annual reports, I think Paint Care lumped together anything that wasn't basically all of their like alternative products were all lumped into one disposition method. So it might have been buried in like an alternative products category. I forget what the actual category was. But paint has always been going to Amazon and Riverside, and that's one of the disposition methods that they use. They basically mix the paint with latex paint with sawdust, and it's burned for fuel at one of the cement kilns. Regarding increasing reuse payments, I know in prior years, I want to say something like 2016 or so, Paint Care did increase the reuse incentive, and they saw some additional participation as a result of that. So if you've been hearing from local governments that more money would help increase participation, I'm certainly open to that idea as well, and we can have a discussion with Paint Care on that. So appreciate you raising that issue.
Thanks for those clarifications, Allie. Good to hear from you.
You too, as always, Doug.
All right, very good. Well, Stephanie, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate the time and effort and the details on that. Doug, thank you for your questions and comments. And Allie, thanks for jumping in there. Matt, I'm going to turn it now or back to you for 1335.
Excellent, thank you. So this is an information item about the adoption of proposed regulations for the Sustainable Packaging for the State of California Act of 2018, also known as SB 1335. Zach Bradford will present an update on the implementation of SB 1335. And Zach is our SB 1335 lead and the newest addition to the Sustainable Materials and Research Unit. So welcome, Zach. And I'll turn it over to Zach for his presentation. We'll have public comments after that. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Matt. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes, we can, Zach. Good morning to you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Matt, for the introduction. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about our new adopted regulations for SB 1335. It looks like I skipped a few slides there. So I'll start with just a little bit of background here. So SB 1335 was passed in 2018, and it directed state-owned and operated food service facilities in California to use only food service packaging that is reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And it directed CalRecycle to establish the criteria for those terms. It also directed the department to develop a process for evaluating food service packaging items according to these criteria, consider litter, public health, and wildlife impacts in the regulations, and publish a list of approved food service packaging items and update that list at least every 5 years. The legislation applied to state facilities that distribute prepared food. So that includes items like plates, cups, bowls, and clamshells, but it excluded items that are mass-produced foods. So those include things like straws, cup lids, utensils, and bottles in the CRV program. The department has been working on the rulemaking for SB 1335 for the past year, starting with director approval in January of last year. And we included 3 public comment periods in 2020, in March, October, and December. And then the regulations were finalized and adopted on December 31st, 2020. And that then brings us to today's public meeting. The legislation's main purpose in these regulations was really, again, to establish these 3 criteria: reusable, recyclable, and compostable, and then also to consider public health and litter in those criteria. So from this point on, I'll be talking about each of these criteria, kind of providing a summary. So starting with our reusable criteria, our regulations created criteria that the item must either withstand 780 commercial wash cycles, and that number was determined by an average of 260 business days with an average of 3 uses per day, or the item has the option of providing a 1-year express written warranty that the item will be reusable for its intended purpose for at least that year. And then for our recyclable criteria, we really were focused on ensuring that recyclable items are truly recycled in California. So first we started with the criteria that the item must be collected, sorted, and aggregated by at least 60% of facilities statewide. And we're ramping that up to 75% effective 2026. Or the item can demonstrate adherence to these criteria by way of a take-back program. The item must also demonstrate that it has sufficient commercial value to be marketed for recycling, and that is something that we defined in the regulations. It also must have meet a minimum size requirement to ensure that it is indeed captured in recycling programs. And then the criteria prohibit the use of any additives that initiate fragmentation, as that can lead to microplastics in the environment and can also impact the recycling stream. For our compostable criteria, we had the similar goal to ensure that the item is really truly being composted in California. So the criteria started with collection and acceptance, again, terms that are defined in the regulations. So we set those at 50% again of programs and facilities statewide, again, ramping up to 75% effective 2026. And then as with the recycling program, we mirrored the option of a take-back program. Additionally, if the compostable item or if the item is being submitted for consideration for the compostable criteria and it is plastic, which also means plastic coated or plastic containing, we added criteria that the item must meet applicable ASTM standards, so they're industry standards for plastic items that are compostable, and a requirement that the item demonstrate through accredited testing at accredited laboratories 90% biodegradation within 60 days. And that is a time frame that matches California compost facilities that accept mixed materials. And then considering public health and litter, our criteria required disclosure of Proposition 65 chemicals. They also must provide toxic in packaging proof of certification and meet a threshold for per or polyfluoroalkyl substances. These are also known as PFAS. And the threshold is that they must have less than 100 parts per million total fluorine in the item. And then lastly, with regards to public health and litter, the regulation establishes a process to work with other agencies to evaluate litter impacts. For our status and next steps, as I mentioned, the regulations were adopted December 31st, 2020. And so now we are working on finalizing the rulemaking package for review by the Office of Administrative Law, so-called OAL. And then we must publish the initial list of approved food service packaging items within 90 days of that OAL approval. And so our goal right now is sometime this summer, kind of aiming for early summer. And then after that initial list, the department is obligated to review the list again at least every 5 years. So moving forward, if the public is interested in learning more and following along on the implementation process, feel free to email us at the email here, subscribe to our listserv, or follow us on our website. And with that, we just wanted to say thank you, and especially thank everyone who participated in the rulemaking and provided input and recommendations on the regulatory language. This definitely benefited, or our regulation definitely benefited from the comments and suggestions we received during the process. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for all your comments.
Very good. Zach, thank you. And I appreciate your sort of penultimate slide there. This is perhaps just my own misunderstanding or ignorance of the terminology used in the rulemaking process. But I appreciated that you indicated there is adopting the regulations, but then there is that second step of finalizing the rulemaking with the Office of Administrative Law. So I appreciate that, because one would assume adopted means, okay, they're in place. But thanks for that clarification, just so everyone understands where we are in the process. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
Do we have any questions on this particular item? I'm trying to be mindful of time.
We have a question from Bruce. Bruce, you're unmuted. You can ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, Ken, Rachel, and team. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I represent. Thank you. I represent both the Association of Plastics Recyclers and the Biodegradable Products Institute. And a couple concerns with the adopted regulation. The statewide standard and percentages has always been a little problematic, because, as we know, California is quite a vast and diverse state. And to put a statewide average when some sections of the state may have access to more robust recycling and collection versus other sections of the state doesn't seem the most efficient way to encourage recycling and diversion. Whereas, say, for example, in, say, a food take-back program, if you have a composting facility that's willing to sign a direct contract with a facility to do a take-back program, yet the items aren't accepted at the correct percentage for a statewide number that's determined in this regulation, you're precluding an opportunity at a localized facility to be very efficient in its organics, food waste collection, take-back, using compostable products, which would enhance that success. So that's one of the things that I want to make the point on. And another is the area where you talk about 90% biodegradation within 60 days. Those numbers don't, they're not consistent with any scientific standard, either in the United States or internationally. And the term biodegradation is actually the incorrect term. What laboratories test for is for disintegration, not biodegradation. And it gets very weedy and very technical, but it's almost like CalRecycle in this instance is developing its own standard without the robust background that, say, an ASTM or European Commission has put into developing a standard. And so that's a bit problematic as well, because the terms, you can have an accredited lab, but what are they accredited to test for? Because if you're talking about standards such as ASTM or the European Commission, you're going to ask that lab to, say, stop a degradation test at a point in time that the ASTM standard wasn't designed for. And so what are you really testing for? So there's a lot of really technical things. We can come back and meet with you and talk more about that, but I know you've adopted the regulation. But these are some of the concerns we've shared with you in writing, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bruce. Zach, I don't know if you have any response on biodegradation, taking them in reverse, however you wish to, or the facility question.
Yeah. So let me address the latter question, the last question first, or the last comment first. So the final regulations, the way we wrote the criteria for biodegradation is that they are not interfering with the ASTM standards or the ASTM tests. So what we've done, instead of asking a lab to stop the ASTM test for biodegradation at 60 days, instead we've written in a process by which an applicant can submit in their application the test report from ASTM certification. So the ASTM certification, standard practice for that certification to include this test report that indicates, how and to what extent the item seeking certification meets those biodegradation and disintegration requirements in the ASTM standard. And that report includes a biodegradation curve, which can then be referenced to see where in the test timeframe the item actually reached 90% biodegradation. So that report is what we receive in the application. So there's no modification of the ASTM test. There's no interference with the testing process or procedures in seeking ASTM certification. And it's just one more step for staff, CalRecycle staff, to analyze in determining whether it meets our requirements, our criteria for the regulations. So it is a stricter standard, but it does not interfere with the existing ASTM standards and that certification process. To the other comment around biodegradation and disintegration, so staff did look into, the difference and weighed which criteria we felt was kind of key for accomplishing our goals for these regulations. And we really came down to one of our big concerns is contamination and microplastics. So what we didn't want to do is set a standard for disintegration that could then potentially lead to microplastics of, even the bioplastic, quote unquote, compostable plastics in the compost, in usable compost that then ends up on fields and other applications in California. So really, when we were concerned with biodegradation, we want items to end up in compost facilities with the ability to become usable compost without contamination, without microplastics. So for us, biodegrading within 90% within 60 days was for us a better criteria than focusing on disintegration.
Okay. Thank you for that.
If I can, real quick, Ken. I appreciate that, but again, it's talking to our technical folks. It's establishing what you're defining as a stricter standard, which I appreciate, and I think what our folks who have worked for decades with the ASTM and established the other standards, they would argue that this is a standard without the requisite scientific, legwork put in behind it. So it's an arbitrary number. We absolutely appreciate the commentary on degradation versus the term you're using, biodegradation, or we use disintegration to avoid microplastics. But I don't believe there's anywhere in the adopted regulation that speaks to what is a stable and mature compost. As we know, composting facilities operate differently. They accept different types of items, different base organic materials. And so how one facility, it's the old trope, right? If you visited one composting facility in California, you've visited one composting facility in California. They're all very different. And we've very much opened ourselves up to the opportunity to help fund and participate and work in real field testing, not just laboratory testing, with our partners in composting to make sure things do break down. But again, are we talking about a compost material at the end of the day, which is what you mentioned, and I don't think there's a definition within the reg for that, versus how the facilities operate. So I feel like the onus is placed on one side of it and the other side isn't getting the requisite attention that it needs for us as a system to be successful in organics diversion. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
Yeah. So Bruce, appreciate the comment. I think what I heard you say early on too is that maybe, we can have a longer conversation about this and kind of understand your perspective a little bit. But appreciate your perspective and where you're coming from. I think, Zach and the team, have responses for some of the deeper details that you're pursuing here. So we can follow up and have a discussion with you offline.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Are there any other questions on this item?
No other questions.
Very good. Zach, Matt, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time. Zach, thanks for all the work on that, you and the team both.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to turn now to Chief Counsel Anastasia Baskerville for two items, the annual rulemaking calendar, as well as an SB 212 regulations update. Anastasia, there is a question pending from Leonard Lang regarding prepayment hold regulations. If that's something that's on the calendar, perhaps you can identify it. So, Anastasia?
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me and see me okay?
Yes, we can. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Let's see.
Oh, and now you're getting a little choppy.
People can see you. Can you see me now?
No.
Click to share your webcam. It says that I am sharing it.
Is your camera covered by any chance? Because it's black.
Yeah, I was just.
It's not covered. Isn't that funny? Shoot. Hold
Is
on.
the USB connected? Is your webcam connected?
Yeah, it was working this morning, so I don't know what the heck. Hold on. Let's see. Well, rats.
Well, that's unfortunate, but if you could just go ahead, I'm not sure. There may be there may be something that's just not repairable at this point. So,
okay. Well, gosh, good morning, everyone. I apologize for that technical difficulty. This item is for the director's approval of the annual CalRecycle rulemaking calendar for submission to the Office of Administrative Law. As you may or may not know, every state agency responsible for implementing a statute that requires interpretation pursuant to the Administrative Procedure Act is required to prepare a rulemaking calendar for the year. CalRecycle is required to include on the calendar any regular, non-emergency rulemaking that it may pursue in the coming year as a prerequisite to commencing the formal rulemaking process. The rulemaking calendar this year includes 20 potential actions. Please note, and this is important to note, that listing an action on this calendar does not necessarily mean that CalRecycle will actually commence that rulemaking. Of significance on this year's calendar is definitely the rulemaking for Assembly Bill 793, the beverage container recycled plastic minimum content. We will be working towards formal notice of that package this year. In addition, and as Zach just went into great detail about, we've commenced rulemaking for Senate Bill 1335, the Sustainable Packaging for the State of California Act of 2018. And that package should be on target, as Zach mentioned, to be completed very soon, definitely early this year. So this item is set for the director's approval and transmittal to Cali, PA by the end of the day today.
Thanks, Rachel. Excuse me. Thanks, Anastasia. My apologies. Mr. Lang had a question about prepayment hold regulations. He cites the 2014 Bureau of State Audits audit that opined that the prepayment hold could be construed as an underground regulation. And so is that among those listed on the calendar?
I don't think we have that listed on this. Is his a request to put that on the calendar, or is it a request to, what is the request?
It's just identifying that it's something that has been on the calendar in the past, and in response to the implied question, we are often confronted with other regulations that are more pertinent and immediate because of recently enacted statute, and so resources and time are devoted to those. This one, again, just channeling Mr. Lang's anticipated question, has appeared on the calendar several times, and so I believe he was asking if it was going to be on this year's calendar.
I don't see it on this year's calendar. And Mr. Lang, even if it's on this year's calendar, it doesn't mean because of other shifting priorities of the department that will be a priority for us this year. Maybe in the coming years. And I'm happy to, along with the DOR recycling attorneys, have a discussion with you about your concerns about that. I'd be happy to do that. About the prepayment, as I understand it, it's the prepayment holds.
Yeah, that's correct. And forgive me, I don't know if Mr. Lang is still on the line, but I wanted to respect that he had a question.
Yeah. Well, please reach out to me directly, Leonard, and I'd be very happy and actually curious to hear your concerns and ideas about what the department could do to clarify and make specific the prepayment hold.
He has his hand raised. Let me unmute him.
Can you unmute him?
Mr. Lang, you're unmuted. Hello? Unmute yourself and ask your question. I guess he signed up. Oh,
yeah, I'm here. That's fine. Oh, okay, there we go.
Hi there.
Hi there. I do believe I've just noticed the calendar, and it is on the calendar for this year.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, wonderful.
But I would want you to note that it was the auditor who said that this needed to be done in 2014, and it's basically been ignored, but I will contact you about this. I also have a couple other concerns that since 2013, 2014, there have been emergency regulations pertaining to the training and testing and inspection that have been in emergency status now for 7 years. And I'd like to see that also go to rulemaking.
So as the Chief Counsel indicated, Mr. Lang, we can have a longer discussion with you on these items. I think many, I know that you got to know some of the other leadership in the department in advance of their retirement, and so the fact that we have some new players would be a good opportunity for you to meet them. So thank you for your question, and I'm going to turn now back to Anastasia, if I may, for SB 212. Just a quick update
we
there.
have one more question.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Bain, let me see. Bain, you're unmuted. You can ask your question.
Awesome, thank you. And hi everyone, this is Bonnie Benniwell with Californians Against Waste. I had my hand raised during Zach's presentation on 1335 regulations. So I'm wondering if it's okay to ask that question now.
Sorry to have missed you. Please go ahead.
Okay, sure. Not a problem. Well, Californians Against Waste, as a sponsor of the original legislation, we are certainly really excited to see the adoption of these regulations. I did want to flag one thing that we've addressed in our previous comments, and that is the criteria for reuse. So as we see it, as it stands now, it looks like a lot of the traditional foodware that we see at restaurants, say the ceramic plates or silverware, glasses, they would not meet the criteria of either having an express warranty or accredited laboratory results of 780 cycles as the regulations stand right now. So I was wondering if someone at CalRecycle can speak to this and how you all see this as a potential issue, or if there's any workarounds that you're envisioning.
Thank you for that question. I'm going to ask if Zach is still with us. If not, Matt, perhaps you can speak to that question.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, Zach. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Bonnie, we are happy to work with you guys in kind of addressing this, but really going through the criteria for reusable, we needed to develop some criteria that could be demonstrated, and the examples you provided, it really seems like there is the possibility for either a way to demonstrate that they do meet those wash cycles, which they will. The ceramic plates, ceramic mugs, all the reusable items you're mentioning. So it might just be a matter of working with the department in, the application to simply demonstrate that it is, find a way that is demonstrating that is the case, and or working to, acquire a warranty, or again, just present a paper trail working with the department to show that is meeting that requirement. So it definitely was not our intention to exclude those, and indeed we want to see those reusable items used for these purposes at state facilities, and it might just be a matter of working with the department during the application process for those items.
Thank you, Zach. Bonnie, thank you for your question. I apologize that we missed it earlier.
Okay, thank you so much, Zach, and we can chat offline as well.
Great. Very good. I don't believe there are any more questions on the rulemaking calendar. So Anastasia, briefly, if you could just provide a quick update on 212, and then we will move to discussion about the draft policy recommendations from the statewide commission.
Sure, absolutely. So the Pharmaceutical Sharps Waste Stewardship Program regulations were approved by the Office of Administrative Law on January 7th of this year, became effective and filed with the Secretary of State on the same date. CalRecycle did make a few non-substantive changes to the regulatory text after submission to OAL. Those were originally submitted on November 19th, 2020. The changes did not require another public comment period, as they were, very, very non-substantive. And the changes, for anyone who's interested in learning about which changes were made, a link to the approved regulatory text can be found on the PharmaSharps rulemaking page, and that can also be found on our website at calrecycle.ca.gov.
Okay, Anastasia, did we lose you? Oh, there you go. You dropped out for a bit. Do we have any questions for Anastasia on this item?
No questions at this time.
Very good. So we will now turn to the policy recommendations from the statewide commission. Zoe, where you get? There you are. Good morning, Zoe Heller.
Good morning. So I just have a quick announcement on those recommendations. So AB 1583 required CalRecycle to convene a statewide commission on recycling markets and curbside recycling. So this commission in December submitted us their initial report of 19 draft policy recommendations. A link to this report can be found on CalRecycle's statewide commission website, and the commission's next meeting will be tomorrow from 8:30 to 12:30. So that's all for my announcement. Just wanted people to be aware that the report had been submitted and they can access it. They can find a link to it rather on our website.
Very good. Thank you for that. Any questions for Zoe on this item?
No questions at this time.
Very good. Okay. Ben Kinney, we're going to turn it to you now for the it's sort of quarterly update time from the Division of Recycling. I think we have a few presenters and presentations. So Ben, good to see you. Good morning, and I'll turn it to you. Ben, I think you might be muted. Still can't hear you, Ben. Are you muted? No? I know we had some connectivity. AV, any indication? Nope.
It shows that it's unmuted right now.
Okay. Ben, if you could check your device as well as the indicator in the web app. Make sure that both of those are unmuted. So checking your laptop to see if it is unmuted as well as the web app. Can't hear you. Let's do this. Why don't you try and work with that? Let's go ahead and shift to Hugh Lee. for his update on the recycling program operations report. Hugh, are you able to jump in and present?
Yeah, definitely.
Good morning, Hugh. Good to see you.
Hi.
And we can hear you.
Let me try to share the screen. Okay, I got it. Oh. Can you see it now?
Yes, Hugh, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Sure. My name is Hugh Lee. I work in the recycling operations branch. Operations is in charge and is responsible for setting up the rates, the CRV rates, and the processing payments, handling fees, etc. And then we also make payments, CRV, handling fee, subsidies such as quality incentive payment, plastic market development, and curbside supplemental. And we are also responsible for many of the data analysis and requests that comes in. So for this time period, I have some data to share with you. It's the end of the year numbers. First off, plastic market development. The fourth quarter payment, the claims for them are due February 10th. For the quality incentive, this is the subsidy for the cleaning and color sorting of 3-mix glass coming from curbside programs mostly. It's a $10 million program, and the claims for the second period, which is a 6-month period, those claims are also due on February 10th. On the disbursement side, CRV payments for the January through December period, we received almost 37,000 claims that we processed for a total payment of $1.2 billion. For handling fee, for the January to December period, we paid out $41.9 million.
Very good, Hugh. Great. Thank you for that, Hugh.
Sure.
Impressive numbers. Do we have any questions for Hugh on this presentation?
Let me check, one moment. I don't see any questions at this time.
Great. So what I'd like to do is go to Ben Shelton for his 2 presentations, and then I understand Jennifer Akins, you'll be able to jump on and provide the certification and registration report. So Ben, if you could go ahead and do item 3 and 4, that would be terrific, and then we will return to Jennifer.
Okay, just waiting for, here we go. So can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, and we can see your presentation.
Great.
Thank you.
So my name is Ben Shelton. I'm a part of the enforcement branch here at CalRecycle. This is for June to September of last year information, or July to September 2020. So just some highlights for investigations and inspections. The investigations went up 403% last quarter. Some of the reasons for that is we conducted shorter time frame investigations. Inspections was also sidelined for a little bit due to COVID, and so they assisted us in investigation work during that quarter. And lastly, this is something that is unheard of since I've been here for the last 7 years, is that we are almost fully staffed as of today in the enforcement branch. So I wanted to thank everybody, for all the managers in the enforcement branch and HR for working diligently and getting this done. It's you can see from our record last quarter that it was very much improved. So for DOJ arrests, this is another thing that to be proud of. For the past 5 years, each year they've made more arrests every year and subsequent. So for 2020, this was the culmination of their best year. And I was actually present during this October 2020 arrest all those arrests. And I wanted to thank the California Department of Food and Agriculture, DOJ, and the enforcement branch team for all of their work. They all did a fantastic job. So for this, they actually made 4 arrests. During an interdiction, a 3-day interdiction. 27,000 pounds of empty beverage containers were seized. About $40,000 worth of CRV that we prevented a loss from. And DOJ identified that the sources of these beverage containers were coming from Arizona and Nevada. Another arrest in October. The driver arrested an individual transporting empty beverage containers from Arizona into California. Literally tons, almost 4 tons of beverage containers were seized in that 53-foot truck trailer. They're very good at packing it in. Charges included felony recycling fraud, attempted grand theft, and conspiracy. And last, they just did a bang-up job this last quarter. In December, DOJ arrested an individual transporting empty beverage containers again from Arizona into California. They circumvented the CDFA station to avoid detection. Almost 10,000 pounds this time were seized with a loss to the fund of about $15,000 if it were redeemed. And charges again included felony recycling fraud, attempted grand theft, and conspiracy. Any questions on that?
I'm checking now, and I don't see any questions at this time.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Ben. I think you have the next item as well.
I do have the next one. So this we did a review back in 2016. So this is just another overview from our fraud management strategy. So we wanted to provide just an overview of what we're doing, what our fraud management strategy is, and then who our CalRecycle partners are. So some of the biggest fraud that's occurring is from imported beverage containers. This was something that we believed in 2016 when we first did this presentation, and now we definitely have, with all the arrests that DOJ has made, this is one of the biggest frauds in our program. One of the second biggest is probably previously redeemed containers. And lastly on this list is line breakage and rejected containers. That's when beverage manufacturers don't put in their material for scrap, and for some reason it gets into the wrong hands and it gets redeemed for CRV. Other items are failure to pay CRV processing fees, paying CRV on using the incorrect basis, underpaying CRV, and short weighing loads of CRV. And lastly, falsified records. This kind of goes hand in hand with imported materials because they need to have claims to substantiate their fraud. So they falsify consumer transactions, and they also overstate their purchase volume in order to get better handling fees and supplemental payments. So we actually have a guidelines that we use. It's called the fraud management strategy, and it's an approach that Malcolm Sparrow actually introduced. It's a book that he wrote. And it's an 8-step strategy. These steps are not mutually exclusive. We conduct a strategy using all 8 approaches simultaneously. So there's the 8 approaches, and these 8 approaches are listed generally from least resource intensive, usually cheaper, to the most costly with investigations and prosecutions at the back end. Now, if you've listened to my presentations before, you've you might have known that I've been a big proponent of focusing our efforts on the first 5 approaches. Using this approach has subsequently made our investigations and prosecutions much more effective and efficient. So deterrence and prevention.
Hey, Ben,
yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm getting a little concerned about time. We're running a little long, and perhaps this is something we can pick up at our next public meeting. I apologize for cutting you off, but we've got a few other items, and we've run past noon. My sincere apologies for doing this at this time.
Okay, well, I can try to wrap it up quickly.
Well, let's go ahead and just put a pin in it right now, and then we're going to turn to Jennifer for her piece because
Sure.
Sorry about that. I'll take responsibility for flawed time management for today.
No problem.
All right, thank you, Ben. Again, I apologize for cutting you short there. Jennifer, if you're able to provide your report, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Akins, and I'm with the Certification Registration Branch. And Teresa Bowie will be sharing my slides today. Unfortunately, I have some rural internet connection issues, and I cannot share my slides. Can someone confirm that they're on the screen, please? I cannot see them.
Yes, we can see them.
Fantastic. So what I will be doing today is I will just highlight some of the interesting points on each slide. I know time is short, and these slides are available on the internet, so you can download them to be able to review them in more detail if you would like. Next slide, please. This slide should be the convenience zone status, the comparison from 19 to 20. You'll notice there's a reduction in the exemptions and the hold zones, and this has contributed to the rise in the unserved zones. These reflect the Replanet 2019 closures. Next slide, please. These should be the dealers in unserved zones. Increase is mainly a result, again, of those Replanet 2019 closures. Next slide, please. The handling fee claims, you'll notice, have increased pretty dramatically from 2019 to 2020. We have had some recycling centers move into some of the zones vacated by Replanet. Additionally, recycling centers serving these zones have absorbed increased volume left from the Replanet closures, which is one of the reasons why the average claim has increased. Next slide, please. Staff continue to review new manufacturers and distributors and register them as appropriate. And this is a workload slide. Next slide, please. There's a negligible change in numbers of beverage manufacturers and distributors, so things are pretty consistent. Next slide, please. This should be the disbursement slide. Pre-certification classes have moved to a virtual platform, and they did resume last month. So we had our first classes, and we're very excited about that. The number of certified and registered programs has changed slightly. Most programs have decreased from this time last year, except there are a few more recycling centers in some of those vacated Replanet zones. Next slide, please. This concludes my portion of the presentation. Are there any questions?
We have a question from Doreen. Let me unmute. Doreen, you're unmuted. You can ask your question.
Actually, it was on the last presentation, so I guess I'll hold my question till next time.
All right. Thank you, Doreen.
We have a question from Leonard. Leonard, you are unmuted. You can ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You heard me? Okay, great. We are, I just checked on the website. We're down to 1,217 recyclers, and I'm wondering, would it be possible to get a monthly report on both the closures as well as the new certifications so we can see what's happening?
We'll take that question to the program staff. Sometimes the certification process can take a little longer than the time of the public meeting, so it may not be a meaningful update on a monthly basis, but we will take that back, Leonard, and see what we can provide that is responsive to your question. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
There are no other questions at this time.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you for staying on until it goes back. Sorry, what was that last bit there?
Just wanted to say thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Very good. Okay, I believe we are going to turn it back to Matt Hennigan.
Yes, thank you, Ken.
And I think once again, you're headlining this thing and closing us out. So go right ahead, buddy.
Yeah, happy to. So this is an action item regarding compliance investigation results regarding the implementation of mandatory commercial recycling and mandatory commercial organics recycling. And the jurisdictions involved are listed in the attachment. Jeff Taylor will be presenting this item regarding the compliance investigation results related to the implementation of these mandatory programs. So Jeff, do we have you dialed in? Jeff Taylor. Well, that is unfortunate.
Oh, I always look forward to Jeff's presentations.
Well, maybe we give him
Let's go ahead and jump to the next one if we could, Matt, and then give Jeff just a moment to come back on.
Absolutely, yeah. The last item is an informational item regarding the 5-year review report for the regional agency integrated waste management plan for the Sonoma County Waste Management Agency. So the Public Resources Code requires that the Department of CalRecycle review and approve or disapprove of each countywide or regional agency integrated waste management plan 5-year review report. Sonoma County Waste Management Agency has submitted a 5-year review report of its regional agency integrated waste management plan. And it has concluded that no revisions to the regional agency's planning documents are necessary at this time, and staff concurs with that assessment. So that is delegated to Kara Morgan, the branch chief, and she has approved that determination.
Very good. Thank you for that, Matt. I do not see Jeff back on.
Right.
Online. So we may have to postpone that until maybe redo that.
You know, I think that's a good idea rather than me try to butcher it and summarize it here. This is not a time sensitive
right.
topic.
We want it to be accurate. Well, and Jeff always does a really nice job with that presentation. I do see one question that the attachment referenced wasn't included. Doreen, we will make efforts to correct that as well. So that brings us to the end. Director Wagner, I don't know if you had any closing comments. I had a couple of things I just wanted to point out. I know we're running long, and that's on me.
No, I just want to thank everyone for their participation today. I know there were a lot of items to work through for our January agenda. I look forward to talking to everybody in the, I believe, 3rd week in February. Just thank you again, and a really nice job by our staff of giving such detailed update.
Yeah, thank you for that. So just really quickly to close, and my apologies, we're running a little bit long. You know, it's a new year. Coming out of what has been a really difficult year for a lot of us. But with a new year comes just fresh ideas. I made this rather clunky metaphor at an all-staff meeting that we had in December. That the point of the winter solstice, right, is when we have the most amount of darkness in one day and the least amount of light. But immediately upon the solstice, the daylight gets longer. It's incremental, but it does start to happen. And I was outside last night realizing that it's later in the afternoon, it's in the early evening, and the sun was still shining. And I think that's a metaphoric feeling for, despite the cold winter that we find ourselves in, despite the problems that we're still encountering with the pandemic, things are opening up. We are experiencing more light. The governor's budget that was released on the 8th is really exercising a great strategy of utilizing an unexpected windfall to really help normalize and to help get things back on track. K through 12 education, for example, really making commitments in public health to really heal and to help us recover from what has been an emotional and physical and just, for many, financial burden and financial challenge. The work continues. You saw much evidence of that today in these presentations. We are here to continue to support stakeholders and local governments and the citizens of the state of California as we navigate through this. Change is on the horizon, and we embrace that change and we will move forward. And we have survived 2020. We have, and we are resilient. We will move forward and embrace the new year. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and we will see you next month at our next public meeting. Please take care of yourselves, and please continue to take care of each other. Thank you.